This is ContactTalkRadio.com, consciousness in action, and you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Ping.fm, and UpSnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio. Welcome to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. Joan and Janet are subtle energy empaths who navigate consciousness. Their passion is to support you in your evolution. As consciousness, we are all one. One mind, one heart, free of all limitations. Experience this reality with us and discover how it can make a difference in your daily living. Join us in a state of grace as we explore, with warmth and humor, this thing we call life. Now, here are Joan Newcomb and Janet Barrett.
Welcome to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. We're your co-hosts, Joan Newcomb, coming to you from Tacoma, Washington, and my partner, Janet Barrett, coming to you from Portland, Oregon.
Hello, everyone. How nice to be with you again.
We have a very interesting show today. We're talking about consciousness and a pressure-free holiday. The holidays are traditionally filled with stress, and this one is more than most. So stay tuned, because we'll talk about how to enjoy the season from the perspective of consciousness, regardless of other sounds and things going on.
There's so much going on during the holidays, always.
A lot of extraneous. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, here's an invitation to go deeper with us, to connect with us beyond the show. You can join us at our website, www.consciousconversationswithjoanandjanet.com. And there you're going to find all our latest podcasts. Both Joan and I write great blogs. She's on Friday, I'm on Monday, and usually the new editions are posted right there. Then we have meetups. Joan sees everyone in the Puget Sound everywhere, and I do here in Portland, Oregon, and then also about our private sessions we do with our clients. And then we got all our Facebook contacts and everything. So Joan will give you all that great info.
Right. Though most everything you can find on Conscious Conversations with JoanandJanet.com. But you can also find us on Facebook. If you just search for our show's name, Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet, you can join the group there and join the fun. You can also find Janet by her name, Janet Barrett, or mine, Joan Newcomb. You can find us on Twitter. The show is at Joan and Janet on Twitter. That's just to keep you on your toes. We also, Janet's got a real tricky one for you, and that is...
Janet Beyond, I think. Great, yeah.
Yeah, at Janet Beyond.
Janet Beyond.
And I'm giving you guys a break. It's just at Joan Newcomb, so you can find me there. Now, we're also on YouTube, so you can subscribe to us on YouTube. Again, find us at Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet on YouTube. I'm also on YouTube, Joan Newcomb. You can also see my YouTube videos on our website. And actually, I have been doing Facebook Live this month. So rather than YouTube videos, I'm doing Facebook Lives because I'm in the midst of creating this course for January. And it's taking a lot of filming and editing. And it's a lot simpler for me just to go on Facebook Live for us.
I think it's a great way to do it. Lots of different ways to engage with us. Me, on Twitter, you get my consciousness cookies. Every day there's a different consciousness cookie there. So we try and all keep it simple, and especially during the holidays, which is what we're talking about today, right? It's like, how do you keep your sanity and center and in all the uproar, and then that life is just providing, plus the addition of the stress of the holidays. So we enjoy the holidays, and we want you to enjoy it also. So
it is, holidays are traditionally stressful times, and I think we touched base on that last week as well, is that they're just filled with expectations and assumptions, and everybody else's expectations and assumptions. And for those of us in the northern hemisphere, the weather is usually lousy and it doesn't help with our moods. And we've had some, around the world, we have had what seems like an extra dose of stress. We've had upheavals. Many countries have had upheavals with their governments and crazy things going on like that. There are people who have got actually places that have got natural disasters as well going on. So hey, if you're not getting hit one way, you're getting hit the other, and things have been going on all year long. I see this as part of our evolution as consciousness, but man, we just kind of feel smacked sideways on the side of our heads, it feels like.
Well, there's all different kinds of ways that we interact as humans, as consciousness. You get your cultural, you get your religious dogmas, you get just being your neighbor, and a lot of that comes into to compromise, or can feel it compromising at times, and or there's so many different ways to be pulled, and you can feel your sense off center. So for those of you that are listening live, we want to thank you for that and bring a relaxation to what you're doing right now. And then for those of you that are going to catch us on podcast, just once again unfold yourself into that heart-centered awareness and just relax and listen in with us, and you'll be able to find where maybe you didn't know you were tense, and that can start to relax. And just, we want to enjoy the holidays, right? That's what we're all after. Let's just enjoy. And I have a particular slant on that. I've been forced to bed, so everyone else around me is having to deal with the holidays in a different way. And I just decided, don't stress it. You can only do so much, and it's been kind of interesting to just relax.
It's I was thinking about you the other day because you likened the experience that you went through that's kind of ended up this way as childbirth.
Yeah.
And I was thinking that a component, what happens to many women before they give birth, is that they're confined to bed rest.
Oh, that's true.
They have medical situations where they have to go to bed.
Yeah.
So they're stuck in bed before they have this kid. And so you're kind of having a reverse situation, and many decades past any kind of childbearing year. Years, but
last week we were talking about dealing with the unexpected, and one thing, you have something comes up, and whether it's a hurricane and a flood, and you're displaced, or whether you have some kind of medical procedure and you find yourself flat on your back for 6 weeks. Unexpectedly, you just, it's how flexible we can be, and how each is an opportunity to slow down. So we got a forced slowdown. We have a forced position where things are not the same. And how do you recover and recoup, and how do you keep yourself together and allow for things, because traditions are those things that come up. They can be very important. They can also be very limiting. And so sometimes it's about setting new traditions. And that's kind of the way I feel about it anyway. Embracing new traditions. So.
Yes. And, the other thing I think about is that this, with all the craziness and expectations, is there is this push to rush around and get a lot of stuff done. And at the same time, astrologically, we're in a Mercury retrograde, which slows everything down.
Oh, right. Mm-hmm.
And I am finding with what I'm trying to do with this, I keep calling it a product, but it's a do-it-yourself course that I want to start in January. I've been having all these technical glitches, which is not surprising, but it's forcing me to slow down. I'm not changing my deadline, but I am being more focused and deliberate about it, instead of freaking out and having to pull all-nighters or whatever.
Right. Yeah. No, it's like at this time and at this age, I mean, the one grace of getting older, or becoming ageless, is that you realize that it's the intangibles that really where your value goes, not in the things that maybe occupy you when you're younger and you need this, you need that, and that defines us a lot, or in our culture. For me, it's really about kindness. It's about joy. It's about sharing. It's about community. It's about those intangibles that I want to experience, that I want to offer. And you can't put that in a box. You can put it on a tag. I think we were talking yesterday about that, Joan. You were saying how someone was like giving their gift certificate out of them being the gift, right? And that's important. And I think with all the stress, and we're going to call it stress because it means that that's the whole nature of stress, is that it's pulling you too much, that you don't have a sense of center that feels calm and relaxed, and that you're making your choices from. And that's what we're looking for. Wow, I went somewhere. I don't know. I apologize. Something disappeared.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what's going on. So I am noticing that simultaneously with what might be predictable holiday stress, as well as with wacky, unpredictable holiday stress, there is also zoom, zoom coming in sideways, all what I would describe as sort of, matrixy 5D, fabric of time stretching and tearing and whatever. And when I try to approach it from a 3D body personality perspective, which wants to have everything make sense and go harmoniously along a linear timeline, it ain't working. It is just not working. And when I try to, hello,
oh
one
boy,
ringy, two ringy, three ringy. Gracious, good morning to you.
I apologize for that. Yeah, that's the universe ringing
Something
in there.
surprising comes in sideways. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's like that. It takes you totally off track.
Yes.
Right? The unexpected that happens. And you go, just a minute, where was I? And you have to regroup. And when we're so focused in certain directions or in many different directions at the same time, that sense of being centered and making the right choices gets nebulous, right? You just go, okay. So I appreciate my skill set of recognizing myself as consciousness, being in that place and using that to help make choices, and not just what the busy body, busy mind is thinking, but really about what is important to me. And that changes my list a bit of those things that I think I have to do or be or get done. And that's what I would offer anybody, is go back to center and then notice what it is on your list that stands out that you need to get done.
Sorry, I just went to my list. What were you talking about?
Well, that's what happens, huh?
Yeah, there's a lot of distraction, a lot of distractibility. There's just so many things going on at once. And the other thing that I'm noticing for myself is my empathy and telepathy is heightened. It's been heightened for a while, but it's even more heightened now as I'm tuning into different family members with whatever's going on with them. And then I'm also noticing that, wait a minute, this isn't a family member. This is just somebody I know. I'm feeling all their kind of anxiety. And it's not I'm not anxious. So so what I'm feeling right now is this some high anxiety. It's like, anyway, I like you could like something like that. You could always put your microphone on mute. So there's a high anxiety going on, and that was wonderful background for it. So, how do we handle this? Because that's another thing, is that we have got a higher a heightened perception. All of us with this consciousness shift are experiencing a heightened perception. And so you might not be used to feeling other people's feelings to the degree that you are currently now. And then you've got this holidays where the veils are thinner, not only with the unseen world, but with all your relatives sending their cords and mental memos as well. So,
well, I think especially since this kind of global energy, and certainly in the United States, our position in the world seems to be fluctuating a bit here politically. And so there is more uncertainty, perhaps, that people are registering. And when you have a sense of uncertainty, I think that's going to permeate most areas because it's just there. And so whatever that filter is operating. And so it's really perhaps challenging at times to recognize, okay, I'm okay. We're okay. And what happens in the world is how do I want to register that? And as consciousness, I appreciate everybody's creativity and how they're showing up. And on a personal note, some of that is maybe not what I would like to see or do, but I appreciate that we're all in this together. And in taking the time to relax and challenging myself sometimes to relax because there's so much to do or to put my interest to, and going, no, I have to take care of me because I'm the one who's interacting in my world. And I want to make sure that people get that it's okay to take time for themselves, because if you're not in a good place, then your whole world is off. And those people around you that sometimes out of love or, whatever the relationship is, we're co-creating and affecting each other. And so it's up to us to do what we can to be all right. Mm.
And you know what else it's up to us? It is up to us right now to take a commercial break. So stay tuned, because we'll be talking about consciousness and a pressure-free holiday when we come right back.
Is your soul calling you to do something more meaningful with your life? Do you feel crazy for wanting to quit your secure job? Perhaps you are waiting until you retire to do what you love. Maybe you are too daunted to follow your dream. If any of these match your life, then Joan Newcomb's Purpose and Passion Coaching Program is just for you. In just 12 weeks, you will discover who you essentially are and why you are here. Learn to live as your greater self and navigate with conscious mastery. Go to joan-newcomb.com. That's joan-newcomb.com for all of her coaching programs. Would you like a fresh approach to the challenges you are dealing with? Take a journey into your enlightenment with Janet Barrett. Janet is a subtle energies empath, accessing the field of potential with warmth, humor, and support. She will help you to hear what your inner voice is saying. She will share with you how to appreciate who you are now and offer you new ways to understand and transform your issues. Reach her at www.janetandbeyond.com. That's janetandbeyond.com. Again, janetandbeyond.com. Transformation is possible. You can enjoy new outcomes in your current experiences. They can happen in the blink of an eye.
You are listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. To reach our program, please send questions and comments to consciouswithjoanandjanet@gmail.com. That's consciouswithjoanandjanet@gmail.com. Now, back to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet.
Welcome back. You're listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. I'm your host, Joan, along here with Janet, and we are talking about consciousness and a pressure-free holiday.
And you can find pressure anywhere, you know? I mean, it can be internally, it can be externally. It's just, it's part of the gig, right? It's what you get when you're with anything that has a dynamic in it. So it's whether you meet it with resistance or you go with it. It's not resistance so much if you go with it, right? But it's what's important. I think that's baseline. What's important? What really is important to get done or accomplished or to just enjoy, right?
Yeah, it's reframing our priorities. And, you know, I talk about shifting your awareness to that as consciousness. And when it's a very subtle shift, but it suddenly gives you a very global perspective. And it instantly shifts your experience as well. So it instantly gets you out of whatever struggle or frustration that you're experiencing or tension that you're experiencing, and you suddenly you have a bigger viewpoint of everything flowing harmoniously, even when it looks crazy and messed up, kind of thing. You can see the bigger picture of it's, you know, it's like flying up above the cloud cover and the weather map, and you know it looks horrible and snowy and thunderstorms and whatever below, but when you're above it, you get a much more sense of all is very well.
Well, you know, it's also how important it is for each of us to have our experience, right? And we co-create. And so, for example, here I am, flat on my back. And so who's going to take that stress? It falls to my husband to step in more than he already does. And so for him, he could go with, right? And it's like, that's not where I want to be for myself or for him to feel that with me, right? So it's like, okay, how can I organize myself as consciousness that he doesn't have to feel this as a burden? It just gives me a way to get more creative. So for the things that need to be done, is there a different way to do them because I can't interact in the way that I would normally? Is there a way that I can orchestrate things differently? And that's the challenge, and that's the fun. You know, I'm going to label it fun. Because that's the way I want it to be. I want my experience to be fun.
Yeah, exactly. And when you're experiencing it as consciousness, you're enjoying it even if it does seem chaotic or uncomfortable. The greater aspect of you is enjoying it. You know,
well, you have to make adjustments all the time, right?
Course corrections.
Yeah, there you go. Definitely. Well, what do you want people to enjoy out of the holidays, John?
People enjoy. Well, actually, one thing you had said earlier was about you used words like compassion and you know what the essence of the holiday really is. Right. Is usually the opposite of what we're feeling, and when you shift to heart space or to the experience or perspective of consciousness, you have this greater appreciation. You have compassion for what's going on, and it's a greater experience of it, and it's really the essence of what you are. So if I think about that, this entire existence that I'm experiencing is a creation of myself, by myself as consciousness, I love and appreciate my creations. I love and appreciate my fellow man because we're all consciousness. So it's really, you know, a reflection of myself is another, that's kind of a distorted way to express it. But you don't feel the conflict with other people because you're in the unity of it all, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's it the holidays, and we have all kinds of holidays here, and all kinds of religious stuff, and all kind, whatever the persuasion is that you're involved in. The idea of a holiday is a break. I don't know what holiday means. I suppose it was a holy day or something like that originally. But for what holidays mean to each of us, I know a lot of people find holidays to be a problem, because it's a time when they've got to interact with perhaps family, with the past, and I think it's pretty much what you bump up against is the way you feel about the past in a holiday. And for me, anymore, that is just, oh, what'll this time be about, kind of thing. I take a different approach than, oh, it's got to be like this. And that's the way it's always been, so it'll always be like that. And I just see this as an opportunity, and I would invite our listeners to stop. When you hear yourself say that, you need to stop, because that's old programming you're running. And there's nothing new or fresh or vital or creative or filled with potential in that. And so you need to stop and just say, now, just a minute. What could this be like? Why do the outside have to dictate how I feel inside? I intend to have a holiday. I'm going to have some charm, and I'm going to have some nog, and I'm going to enjoy my moments, and because this is my life, and this is what I want. And you can get real clear about that. I don't know how many people are holding that in their awareness.
And you can also choose not to have a holiday.
Well, that's if you feel that way about them. Okay.
Well, no, I was thinking it's interesting. I'm in a neighborhood now. I was in a different neighborhood before.
Right.
But I noticed that we're like the only house that doesn't have Christmas lights. We have a wreath on the door that I made.
Good for you.
Well, no. I made this wreath last year by picking up all these blown down branches after a windstorm, and I just wrapped it around, and I've got some fake holly on it, and then I have this little tiny string of lights from IKEA, and that's on the door. It's not even on the door properly because we can't put a hole in the door, so it's hanging on the side by the mailbox. You can't really see it from the street. And then in our window, we have a poinsettia that I got from Costco, but I don't have any lights on it. So our house looks dark. The entire house looks dark. And my husband's a Buddhist, so he doesn't really care about anything. And so I might not even do a stocking this year because we had kind of downgraded to a stocking. And that doesn't mean that I'm not getting gifts for other people and stuff, but I'm in between children and grandchildren is what I've been saying, and I don't need to pull out the Santa Claus stuff right now.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that nice?
I'm enjoying it. I think at another time or in another attitude, I might have had I might be sad about this, sort of an empty nest kind of thing. Right. But I'm kind of enjoying the space.
Any of this is what we make it to be. And I think it's any time is a moment of offers reflection and hindsight. And as you recalibrate, because that's what I think, when you shift as consciousness and you hold that awareness, and you can recalibrate how you're showing up and what you're doing. And you really get to make another choice if you want to make a choice. That's the thing about a tradition is that, this is what we do. Right or wrong, that's the way it is sometimes. And it's being open to, just because we've always done it that way, okay, we could do it that way. But, I can't. I physically can't do that. So that means I get to do something else. And I don't need to feel bad about that. I just need to respect, okay, that's what's been done, and that's then, and what's appropriate this time. And being fluid enough and flexible enough and expansive enough, I can feel good in that, right? I can look towards, Well, what does that leave us open to? Okay. And you learn how to make your own fun, or you share a hand. You do something different. And it's not judging that and not seeing it as the loss, but seeing it as an opportunity for something else and a new way to experience information in life. And I think that's the key to all this is enjoy what it is you're doing. And if you're not enjoying it, maybe it needs to be something else, and to give yourself that permission to do that.
Oh, so we haven't really offered anyone one specific thing. We've offered them a variety of things, but I think it's because it's not a one-size-fit-all. And, you could be going into the holidays where you've got your annual gathering with your in-laws who you cannot stand. And however, if you shift your perspective to consciousness, you might enjoy not standing it. You might realize it's kind of like going into one of those movies, those Christmas movies, and it starts to become funny and uncomfortable at the same time. So you could be having a different experience with stress, and stress would be just a vibration or a sensation without it being something that's going to make you keel over with a heart attack kind of thing.
Well, that's, it's about pulling back. It's stopping how you view the other, right? Whether it's in-laws or brother-in-law or whatever it might be, and go, okay, if they have as much value as I do, because we're both consciousness, and I put my emotional story aside, what's really there to be with? And whether it's reciprocated and comes back at me, at least I know I feel good for having not been in a judgment place. And I can just look at, okay, warm support, non-judgment, grace. Okay, if I invite grace into my brother-in-law, for instance, what happens? That's why I think what's fun about holidays is because so much gets stirred up. And you have so many different tangents you can focus on, and so it kind of like, all right, if I didn't know anything, what would this all be about? Which is kind of the way it is when you marry into a family, and then you experience their holidays and things, and you go, whoa, I didn't know all of this, so it's new again is all.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because when you marry into a family, they have all their own traditions, and you have all your own traditions, and conflict is likely to abound. When I first got married, I already had a set of traditions because my kids were in high school. So, but I had a tradition with them, and they would spend the night at their dad's house and come over to mine in the morning. And that's when we would open our presents. And so I remember my very first one, I had my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law were visiting, and they wanted to get to the brother's house for Christmas Day dinner or something like that. And so they were up and ready to go right away. And I wasn't going to open the presents that they gave me because I was going to do that with my kids. And it was all a kind of miscommunication and, the craziness of two different dance steps. It's kind of like, one family tap dances and the other family does ballet or something. And, how do you combine those sorts of things? It's kind of would be an interesting thing.
Well, I think you mentioned a good point, because in this day and age, there's so much families that are split. There's divorce and for whatever reasons, and people feel pulled to have their experience with that and then have their experience with them. And these artificial constructs get sort of set up. And, it's like, so you can't be three places at once. You can't even be two places at once too well. And so what does a person do? What does a family do? And there's like, you run up into time. It feels like there's not enough time to organize all the different tangents and places you like to go. And so what we might do this time is look at, well, how could we take this bigger, right? And how in taking it bigger, there's not so much more division, but how might we just combine things that have a sense of separation and really invite? And what you're going to come up with was how you really feel about things and people. And some of that's comfortable and some of it's not. And we're just going to invite that if you put grace into the picture and utilize that more, will that make a difference? Will that ease something that maybe has felt really tight?
Actually, you just gave me a great idea.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to celebrate Festivus, and then I can bring up all the things I don't like about people as we dance around the Festivus pole.
Okay, so what's Festivus? Explain this Festivus to me.
Okay, have you heard of Festivus?
No, not really.
Oh, have you ever watched Seinfeld?
Oh, okay. No, not really. I never did.
Oh, okay. So, what's his name? George's dad came up with Festivus for the rest of us. And it becomes a time where you can air your grievances. And then instead of a tree or anything, you've got a Festivus pole. I'm not quite certain. I don't remember what the pole is for. But I love that. Festivus for the rest of us. And air your grievances.
Well, I think people do the best they can. Now, that may not come across as loving, kind, and warm and fuzzy. But, I think there's all levels of experience out there and emotion. And you can usually sound out those that have intentionality and it feels like harm. But I think generally people do the best they can. And they want to meet each other's needs because they want their own needs met, right? And so I just would invite people to go, be a little more gentle. If there's one thing we need right now is tremendous amounts, waves of kindness, right? And it doesn't matter whether it's the clerk who's so overtaxed because someone's been in their face all day, or your husband, and, whoever it might be, kindness. Get behind kindness. And see if that kind of greases and softens the hard parts out. Be kind to yourself. That's really the key. Because you express what you are, right? If you're kind to yourself, then you can be kind to others. That's my 2 cents anyway.
Yeah, I was hearing you talk about the challenge this was for your husband, and then I heard you talk about greasing and softening the parts out. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's a way of making it easier on your husband as well. Sure.
Yeah, it's how to be supportive, right? It kind of gives you a chance to look at things differently. But because we're always so much in our own mind and our own head about things and in our own focus, and you go, okay, how can I be helpful here? I can't do it from a place of physicalness, but how can I emotionally be supportive? How can I be mindful here? And as I start to tune in those ways, then everything else gets a little easier. Right? Doesn't mean that the things disappear and that you still don't need to get something done. But the state that you're in when you're doing it is different. And that's key. It's about bringing enjoyment into those little moments where something feels like a burden or, an obligation or a duty, because holidays are great for those things. And how to lessen that, how to soften those edges of that is in my attitude about it.
I realize also, I talk a lot about Mercury retrograde and things like that because I happen to enjoy astrological weather. And I see this world as a hologram. And in the programming of a hologram, there's the existence of weather, and there's the existence of planets, and there's the existence of, vibratory fields. And so I have created within my hologram the existence of Mercury retrograde. However, just as when you're operating as consciousness, there's an aspect of you operating outside of time and space. So time can speed up or slow down within that. You can also be within a framework of there's a Mercury retrograde, but you can be navigating without its influence.
That's helpful.
And
when it is.
Right. And then I'm thinking some other things are like I usually have a paradigm of always being cold. And I joke like I have no thyroid, but I'm always cold, and so this kind of time of year usually is bothersome because the cold in the Northwest is damp and bone chilling. And I'm noticing that it's not bothering me anymore, and I don't really think that other aspects of my makeup have shifted. I just think I'm in non-resistance to it.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, doesn't mean I'm going to enjoy it anymore. But it's not going to bother me. So there, I've struck a happy medium for one stressful thing during this year.
Well, I think it's important to realize that everything's full of potential, and as consciousness, you're activating it. You have access to it, and use it. And also, what can surprise you? See, I think sometimes we don't like surprises. And I think then sometimes that's the whole nature of a surprise, is something unexpected, and how to enjoy that. And you get into control issues. I got to get this, and this. I got my list, and I got to get this, and done. And then something happens, something unexpected, something surprising, and the list disappears. And at some point you have to go back. Well, where's my list? And well, it wasn't that important. It just gives you time to recalibrate and enjoy what's possible. What it would be like to throw out everything and just go and have a good time.
I've been talking to different people about, throwing out their Christmas lists. And, one couple I know are parents and grandparents, but they are looking at seriously having to adjust their budget in order to handle retirement, kind of looming on the horizon. So how does that change how they handle Christmases? And somebody else I know was they had a sibling who was going through a divorce, and so everybody else was exchanging Christmas gifts, and when he came to visit, he had a big bright bow tie on because he was their gift. His presence was their present, and it was lovely, and everybody understood it. And so I like the idea of giving people experiences rather than material things. So what's an experience you can give people that doesn't have to mean flying them first class to the Maldives or something like that.
Right. And it can be challenging, when you're downsizing and you're reaching those retirement years and money shifts in focus, and you might be thinking that you're doing less than or being less than. And that's a mindset. And how, as consciousness, you can look at that and go, okay, we're just at a different time, place, and space, because in consciousness, none of that's really important. And so the emphasis shifts, and you're more expansive and adaptable, and you can go, oh, okay, no, I don't have all that. Budget is not the same. But like you're talking about, that experience, what if I could love them differently? What if I could bake them something they would like, And then there's that whole gift thing about giving people something for them as opposed to something that they'd like to receive, That's another tangent you can get off into.
We definitely are getting off on a tangent, but one thing I'm getting us back on time is we are getting back on track with when our next commercial break is, which is in a moment now. So stay tuned. You are listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet, and we are going to take a quick commercial break. But when we come back, we're going to be talking about, I've totally forgotten. What are we talking about? The holidays. Having a stress-free holiday. Something like that.
No pressure.
Is your soul calling you to do something more meaningful with your life? Do you feel crazy for wanting to quit your secure job? Perhaps you are waiting until you retire to do what you love. Maybe you are too daunted to follow your dream. If any of these match your life, then Joan Newcomb's Purpose and Passion Coaching Program is just for you. In just 12 weeks, you will discover who you essentially are and why you are here. Learn to live as your greater self and navigate with conscious mastery. Go to joan-newcomb.com. That's joan-newcomb.com for all of her coaching programs. Would you like a fresh approach to the challenges you are dealing with? Take a journey into your enlightenment with Janet Barrett. Janet is a subtle energies empath accessing the field of potential with warmth, humor, and support. She will help you to hear what your inner voice is saying. She will share with you how to appreciate who you are now and offer you new ways to understand and transform your issues. Reach her at www.janetandbeyond.com. That's janetandbeyond.com. Again, janetandbeyond.com. Transformation is possible. You can enjoy new outcomes in your current experiences. They can happen in the blink of an eye.
You are listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. To reach our program, please send questions and comments to consciouswithjoanandjanet@gmail.com. That's consciouswithjoanandjanet@gmail.com. Now, back to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet.
Welcome back. You're listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. I'm your host, Joan, along here with Janet, and we are talking about consciousness and a pressure-free holiday.
Joan, another thing that comes up for holidays is family members who've probably passed on or who no longer present in the same way that they used to be, and how we have to make those adjustments because we've got an emotional connection there that maybe pulls at us. And that is, as consciousness, we know that life goes on in all its different forms, and that whoever that they were embody, that energy dynamic of them is still present, and that you can find solace in that. And we want to be sure and acknowledge those kind of feelings that might be running around.
It's interesting because you're right that the veil is thinner, so actually they are more present. Mm-hmm. And if you're not conscious to their presence, and even if you are, it can bring up the physical loss all the more. So we're here in a time that's supposed to be of abundance and prosperity, and yet we're feeling all this loss.
Yeah. Yeah, and you want to honor that, right? And you want to honor the best of them. Well, and also the things that were irritating and annoying and all that, because that's part of the whole picture of that person, right? But it's just your attachment and how you relate to that, and how to be grateful that they were in your life for whatever reasons, because they're part of who you are. They're part of your history, and how to appreciate that, and how to bring out how that can transcend perhaps any negative emotion or judgment, and really allow it to just be free. It's a great time of year to let bygones be bygones, right? That we're getting into that kind of place. And how to forgive and forget. Forgetting is the important part there. So,
is forgetting the important part, or forgiving is the important part?
You forgive, but you don't really truly unless you forget. So forget is what has to follow forgiveness. Because forgiveness is that someone has done something to you. And I know lots of people who say, oh, I forgive you. And they don't, because they haven't forgotten it. They're still holding it up as a place of reference. And so you always want to follow that with forgetting. It's releasing it, the energy.
Yeah, I have trouble with that, because it sounds like, going into denial. And
No.
You can, because I think that
it's how you shift the energy of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
if you're holding that someone who's done something to you, and that you're going to forgive them for that, right? Well, it was your setup to begin with in the first place. So, and how many times has someone said that to you, but they didn't? They said they did, but it comes up in different ways. It's underneath there. And so it's unless you really forget it and you're out of the field of it and the relationship to it, does it really no longer have meaning?
Well, what I noticed for myself is that I have, I wasn't conscious of actually forgetting. I wasn't conscious of actually forgiving necessarily, but what I notice now is that I have forgotten the feeling, the intensity of the feeling that I had when the wrong things happened. And what I haven't forgotten here is the fact that we have probably about 3 minutes left to let people know how to go deeper with us and connect with us beyond the show.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, so our website is Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet, and you can go there to listen to all of our podcasts. All of our shows are podcasts as well as live radio shows. You can read our blogs. Janet writes on Monday and I write on Fridays. You can find out about our meetups. I do them all around the Puget Sound. They're on hiatus until January right now. But Janet is doing them from the comfort of her own home on Tuesday nights and on Thursday afternoons. You can also learn about our sessions that we do in person and by Skype and by phone and Zoom. The show is also on Facebook, so that if that is your preferred mode, you can find us on Facebook, Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. You can find Janet on Facebook, Janet Barrett. I'm on Facebook, and also I do Facebook Lives on Tuesdays at 9:30 Pacific, and that's Joan Newcomb. And then you can also find us on Twitter. The show is on Twitter at Joan and Janet. Janet's on Twitter at Janet and Beyond. I'm on Twitter at Joan Newcomb. And then you can subscribe to us on YouTube, Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet on YouTube. And I'm on YouTube, Joan Newcomb. Anything else we've forgotten?
I don't know. Lots of ways to keep in touch. The whole objective for Joan and I, our gift to all of you, is that we commiserate and we also go, we've been there and let's try something different and how to do that. And so we wish you all very happy holidays. Right.
Yes.
No matter how far away they feel.
Yes. We wish you happy holidays. So tune in next week, same time, same channels. You've been listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. I'm Joan.
And I'm Janet. Thanks, guys.